Hey there. Welcome to the Gyro Step, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast, proudly a part of the Gyro Step Podcast Network, aka GSPN, and the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I am one of your hosts, Ty Windisch, joined as always by the charged up, maybe caffeinated Rohan Katti, late on Tuesday night. You can tell it's late on Pi Day. We had to do a podcast with the scientist on Pi Day. Rohan, how's it going?
How can you not be doing great right now? Like, I'm amped.
Yeah.
Forget the fact that it is 11:41 as we start recording this. But you see the Bucks go out West Coast road trip back to back.
Yeah.
Just go out and win both games.
3 and 4 nights too.
Yeah. Might as well if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. Might as well do it. One of them without Chris Middleton too, by the way. Might as well. How can you not be doing great? We've gotten great content over the last 2 days. We got the Brook Lopez skirmish. We got Trey Lyles not getting suspended yet. We've gotten we've gotten a lot. We've got Suns fans transported back to 2021 crying about officiating. We've got everything.
And watching their franchise player get just thrown in a locker by Jrue Holiday several times.
Oh my God. Jrue, like Devin Booker, I swear, I have no evidence to back this up, but in the nights leading up to playing the Milwaukee Bucks, he wakes up in cold sweats thinking about Jrue Holiday.
He's like the Paul George commercial?
Yeah.
Was it Paul George?
Wait, which commercial?
Where he wakes up, he had the nightmare?
Oh, I don't
know. This might have been before your time.
It's Jabari Smith Jr., I think, talking about the Philly making the Super Bowl, saying, I got Embiid tomorrow. That's Devin Booker every time he has to face Jrue Holiday. He circles it on his calendar thinking, hey, you know what? This is going to be the game that I dominate this matchup. And every time it happens, he has to go and circle the next game.
Yeah, I think the Sacramento game was a lot about offense, keeping up with the Kings, Giannis just dominating, and then they did enough defense late. I think the Phoenix game was all about defense, and that makes sense. Chris Middleton out on the second night of a back-to-back. You look at the two best plus-minuses on the team. Jrue Holiday was plus 20, only scored 12 points, 0 for 5 from deep, not an efficient scoring game, had more turnovers than assists, but we know what that defense is like. And then Pat Connaughton, plus 21, 2 for 6 from deep. The 2 threes were big. I'll take that, given the way he shot the ball this season. But he was everywhere on defense. He had a steal and 3 blocks, a bunch of splash plays, good overall game from Pat. Brook Lopez, only credited with 1 block, consistent inside presence. Javon Carter hounding the ball, Giannis all over the place, and of course, the homecoming of Jae Crowder. He just continues to, and I think starting with Jae is fine. We'll talk about Giannis as well. We're going to talk about Giannis in every pod. I mean, the way he's playing and what he's up for this season.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, not to interrupt. Do you think he's a valuable player?
I don't even want to get yelled at by I got yesterday from Andy Bailey pointed out to my tweet, this was actually a great game in terms of box plus minus. I said, that's good. It should be. They all should be. He's the best player in the world. Like, yeah, of course people should think
that'd be an
MVP.
Issue.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. But, I think Giannis is decently valuable as he sits as the clear best player in the world, despite what the Ringer may tell you. Did you see the screenshot I tweeted?
Wait, no, I did not.
Oh, hold on. I got to read you some sections of this. Michael Pina of the Ringer.
Oh, no. I saw the Jokic bitch you tweeted out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the screenshot. So, did you see the whole thing that was written?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
I did. But explain it to the listeners.
It's basically, so the Ringer does their lists, of course. I mean, it worked, right? We're talking about it now. 1,000 people have liked this tweet. Like, it worked for them. They got what they wanted out of this.
Casual flex.
It's honestly kind of annoying. But anyway, like the Giannis one, it's like 5 paragraphs about Giannis by Kevin O'Connor. And it's like they include his weaknesses in there, which I think is fair. It's like an overall summation of Giannis as a basketball player. And they ranked him second, though. And I don't know what goes into this or who makes this call. But Nikola Jokic was ranked first. Mind you, this comes today I think the day this was updated, late obviously after it was updated, the Nuggets picked up their fourth straight loss to a mid-team or worse as they came back and then just got thumped late by the Raptors. Here are some quotes from the 3 paragraphs on Jokic. It starts off with, Jokic is a once-in-a-lifetime basketball phenomenon. As a back-to-back MVP who would probably win the award a couple more times if it were being decided by voter fatigue-proof robots instead of narrative-seeking human beings, he's straight up, without equivocation, the best player on the planet. Couple things here. One, he's won 2 in a row, and at the last straw poll, he was the favorite. So what are the robots going to do? The robots are going to get him. Is he going to win 2 in 1 year? Is that what's going to happen? Or does Michael Pena assume he's going to be an MVP level player for 10 straight years after this? Is that the assumption?
Also, he's one of 4 active players who have won 2 in a row.
We've never seen this before.
Giannis has won 2 in a row. Steph has won 2 in a row. LeBron has won 2 in a row.
Yeah, but Giannis has lost more games in the NBA Finals than Nikola Jokic. So
that's true.
Got to put that up there. 2 NBA Finals losses. That'll hurt the Raptor. Giannis is the best player in the world. I feel like that's almost consensus. Like, I'm honestly a little surprised.
I don't know,
like,
man. Michael Pena might have something else to say.
He clearly does. I'm a little surprised they just put that in there.
Have you considered understanding his defense differently?
So let's get to that. I won't read the whole thing. I mean, he humbles opposing big men with ox-like strength. Somebody sent me a Paul Bunyan Jokic Photoshop that had me crying. He makes everyone around him at least 15% better. I love this specific number.
Show me. I want the math on that. I want his actual calculation.
I think he put 150, and someone editing at the Ringer was like, "Okay, let's a little bit. We need to." This was 10 paragraphs at first. They had to take some out. This is the wild part. The sport has never seen anyone like Jokic. I think it's probably true. He's a pretty unique player. He's an unconventional combination of grace, mystique, and persistent motion. The only box left to check will come in the playoffs when his, in parentheses, I don't know why they needed parentheses, underrated and misunderstood, end parentheses, defense will be tested by teams that, whatever, it doesn't matter. The rest is just very wordy. What? Underrated and misunderstood. How do you misunderstand defense, Rohan? What do you think us mere mortals don't grasp about Nikola Jokic?
Ty, one thing defense? I don't think you're understanding here. Yeah, this is where the misunderstanding.
I don't. That's why it's in here.
Let me explain.
Dumb guy doesn't get it.
Yeah. So when you let a guy score a basket, you're not though. When you let a guy score at the rim, you're actually lulling them into a false sense of security. So it's like eventually, not now, not during that game, obviously, but you're just setting a precedent. So it's like when you get that stop at the rim, eventually you'll be like, I was playing the long game here. I was letting guys score basket after basket. I was being a complete turnstile on defense so I could set up this one contest. You guys, they don't understand. They don't understand
sense of security. Also, I think it's misunderstood because he'd be a much better defender in soccer because he leads the league in kicked ball violations by 3 times the next player. So he just gets lazy and doesn't feel like playing defense anymore. Just a ridiculous set of 3 paragraphs. And the funny part is that in bold right above it, it says analysis. It's like, this is fanfic. This is not analysis. You're just making things up. So there's been some great jokes. Giannis's 3-point shooting is now mysterious and slept on. That's the official. It's not a weakness. I saw some Golden State fans saying Steph's defense has never been understood, which I thought was good. Enough about this. Giannis is the best player in the world, the most valuable player in the world, should be the MVP. Except Rohan, on the last pod, you actually said Jokic. So I think, understand the defense. You understand the defense more than the rest of us.
We've had 2 straight games. I'm all the way back. I was trying to be nice. I was trying to be respectful. I'm done with that. Giannis is unequivocally the best player in basketball. We know that. He is the most valuable player in basketball. You see this Milwaukee Bucks team, they've been able to tread water without him in the lineup. He missed 3 games in a row.
Yep.
He comes back. They get back-to-back wins over good teams by double digits.
Yeah. On, again, 3 games in 4 nights, West Coast trip, which is always difficult.
He's still injured, by the way.
Yeah. as every other top team, Denver, who we talked about, Boston just lost to Houston. Like they're just something's not right there. Bill Simmons is panicking every game at this point. All these other top teams I feel like are slumping now, and they're getting the benefit of the doubt for it in a way I don't know if Milwaukee would, quite honestly. But it's long season. These things happen, whatever. The Bucks just aren't. There's no excuses. What are they now? 21-2 in their last 23 games. Like they led in the fourth quarter in both of the losses. They haven't gotten blown out in a very long time. Like the Bucks are the best team in the league, and Giannis is the best player in the league. Also the best player on the best team in the league. Also the most valuable. Also, they've won like almost 80% of his games. It was over 75%, and he's won 2 games since then. The number keeps going up. I mean, it's higher than any of the other MVP candidates. They don't lose when he plays. I told you before the pod, I had fun Giannis trivia for you. The last game he lost, of course, was the unfortunate Sixers game. Do you know the last time Giannis lost an NBA basketball game before that?
Oh, was it? I can't even remember. Was it?
Do you want me to give you a hint? It was this year. It was a dark day for our nation.
Oh, Hornets.
January 6th against the Hornets. Yeah, they did it for Gordon Hayward. He's lost 1 game since then. Obviously, he's missed some time. But Giannis tonight moved to 21-1 in his last 22 games. And even with the shortened 2 games in there due to leaving to the wrist injury, is averaging like 31, 13, and 6 in those games.
No one is better. You said 1 game since January 6th. By the way, in about 8 minutes, it'll be March 15th.
Yeah. I mean, who knows how far we'll get on this stretch. If they had just not lost that Philly game, Giannis would have a chance of going like a month and a half without losing a game. Like they're just dominating, and it doesn't matter who they're playing. Obviously, the Golden State and Philly games were unfortunate. Also, it's the NBA and stuff happens. Like it's almost impossible to win all these games in a row. Stuff is going to happen. It doesn't, not excusing all of it or anything, but that's the league. This team has just been beyond impressive though. Someone new steps up every night. It seems like the depth is real. They don't have Chris for this game. Ingles, I thought, played really well. And now I think we can move back. I want to talk about the defense and the depth. Start with Jae Crowder, who
before you get into that.
Okay, you're never going to let me talk about Jae Crowder. What's up, bro?
No, but okay. You're talking about like this team is also like they're peaking at the right time. Like the playoffs start April 15th. That is a month from today.
Yeah, the regular season ends April 9th, I believe. So we've got like less than 4 weeks left.
We've seen Bucks teams in the past start early, start strong. Take the bubble team. They were like 50-2 or something when the league shut down. And it's like once that time passed, it's sort of whatever happened. You need these teams to like hit their stride as the season ends, and that's exactly what this Milwaukee Bucks team is doing, in part due to Jae Crowder. Talk about Jae.
I just think it's so funny that a lot of almost all of the reaction around the trade, local and national, was either we got to see if he can still play games. Again, that's dead. Like he's back. He's ready. He's good. He wasn't kidding about running himself sick, literally. The other thing was all that we heard though, right, was the shooting. Oh, you can't rely on the shooting. You can't rely on this and that. And he's 3 for 4 tonight, which is great. All the things he does, it's flippant to say I don't care about the shooting, and it's not true. Obviously, you care about the shooting, and I do feel like he's going to be there in enough big games, even if he's dead quiet in some or even a whole series. Everything else he does is so impactful and so underrated, and I think this is the problem of looking at all role players basically as 3-and-D players, which I think a lot of fans and media do, right? Like this modern league, like, oh, do you shoot threes? Do you make threes? Okay, that's your value, at least offensively. He does so much. The defense is fantastic. The movement, being vocal, switching, being physical, not fouling too much. He actually had no fouls in this game. 5 rebounds. He makes big-time rebounds. Beautiful behind-the-back passes, entry passes, always moving on offense. One thing I noticed about him, and I've said this on the pod, like he doesn't get that many plays, right? Like he doesn't get the ball that often. I actually think they should work him in more because he does have more offensive talent than just shooting threes. he'll get the ball after not touching it in 5 minutes and immediately kick it back out to the top of the key to reset the action. And that's a little thing, but there's a lot of players who it's like, you see it, oh, I haven't gotten the ball in a while. This is my one shot. Like, I'm going to take the shot or I'm going to drive to the rim even if I don't have an advantage. He's such a winner. And it's just every single game, I gush over it. I get the same vibe of just like, yeah, he just does winning stuff. The rebounding, the defense, everything on offense. He's very unselfish. He's a very good passer. I'm just ecstatic. And he closed tonight, which I think is noteworthy. Pat continues to start as guys are out, which it's very bud to just keep that going. But we know the guys who close matter more. In this game, it was Ingles, Crowder, and then, of course, Drew, Giannis, Brook. That means something, and I think he's gaining ground pretty fast in the playoff rotation, and I think it's rightly so.
Speaking of his offensive versatility, he's got a very underrated pump and drive game that I've noticed.
Yeah.
Like, especially it was highlighted a lot during this game against the Phoenix Suns, where you see him catch the ball on the perimeter, and it's just like, okay, this is the defense is in rotation now because they've like had to load up against Giannis and then Drew. And it's like Jae Crowder catches the ball. It's like you don't expect him to do a lot with the ball because, you know, he's the quaternary option at that point. And he just takes the ball, drives, and then he'll kick it out, sort of either to reset the action, as you mentioned earlier, or just to like create an open shot. Like he's capable of creating open shots. And not even that, he doesn't even have to pass out of it. We've seen him like get shots close to the basket, and he has a nice touch around the rim as well. So he has he has a diverse offensive arsenal. It's not like a star level talent, but it's something where it's like it's overqualified to just call him a 3-and-D player, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and I think what he can do paired with the self-awareness of being the age he is now, being on all the good winning teams that he's been on, it's just like even someone like Javon, who is all about winning and helps you win games. There's possessions where, you know, he shoots too early, he misses Giannis, that sort of a thing. And I think that's not him being selfish. I think he's trying to find that rhythm more, being decisive and aggressive versus making the right play. All of that stuff, it comes with time. I mean, Javon has not played as much NBA basketball, has not been on these teams, has not been a fixture in playoff rotations like Crowder has. Everything just seems so seamless with Crowder, which, again, he's played, this is his 11th game at this point. He was going into this, by the way. I don't know if you checked these numbers at all. I took a peek around him lately. He had the second best net rating on the team behind Drew going into this game. Like they're scorching in his minutes. Also, the Bucks, if you look at lineups with 90 minutes at least, I think the 4-man pairing of Chris, Drew, Giannis, Brook has the best offense in the NBA among lineups with at least 90 minutes. Like, they're humming. They didn't have Chris in this game. The offense was definitely slower. But Ingles stepped up and I think does Ingles stuff. I'm kind of back on board with believing in him. Even if the speed isn't there, I think the grift and the size, he does just enough. He's not going to be closing games when Chris is back. Like, we know that's Chris's spot. But to have him to fill in for Chris and give you that extra playmaking and shooting, I do think it's a big deal. I think I've swung back around on Ingles after this trip.
I don't think I'm all the way there yet, but you can't deny what he was producing against the Phoenix Suns today. Like, even if his shot's not there, his passes are so crisp. They're always on the money. You saw them late in the fourth quarter just spam like Jingles, Brook pick and rolls, and it was just working to perfection. Because you don't need to they already have so much inbuilt chemistry, and that's mostly because Joe Ingles is just a really good passer. You don't need to have like years and years of chemistry to do this. No, you need a guy who's a solid decision maker, and that's Joe Ingles,
and has that vision. And I think the thing about Joe that makes that pick and roll so special is he passes guys open. It's like a quarterback. Like Brook is not open when he throws
to the exact right spot.
Yeah, like he just knows. And I'm glad that they run that so often because you can tell the chemistry there is just getting better. I mean, I think we're seeing this has got to be the most pick and roll we see, especially not involving Giannis, right? Like, and we see a lot of Drew and Giannis pick and roll now, and the lob chemistry there has been growing. I think that's terrific. Like, that's just such an easy play to go to. And having, I noted that, of course, the Ingles Lopez pick and roll is like, wow, we can have real offense without Giannis or Chris or Drew. That's great. The other thing I noted was we don't usually, and it wasn't that tonight because there's guys out, we don't always see Giannis in bench lineups because I think they like Drew and Chris, usually Drew and bench to kind of organize that unit. But having Javon and Joe as the guards, and obviously Joe's doing all the ball handling, and then Pat, Jay, Giannis was a lineup they used, the small ball lineup. And I was like, wow, that is technically like when the team is healthy, assuming Grayson remains the starter. Grayson was out with a plantar fascia soreness, I believe. Assuming Grayson's the starter, that's 4 bench players and Giannis. And that is just like such a devastating defensive lineup. And they were doing really well in those minutes. And that's like, man, if you can get Drew and Chris some rest and still be a credible group on both ends, that's the kind of thing that could really make the difference in a 7-game series. This team, I just can't stop thinking about how well this team is built for the playoffs. Maybe, you know what? It was a one upstock day. It was Crowder. This maybe should have been a horse upstock.
Yeah, it should have been. Because you had a nice tweet about the Bucks building a Voltron defense.
I mean, if West came back, that's noteworthy. West returned. I thought he looked good. Got called for too many fouls because that's the Bucks tax, but for the most part, made a 2-point bucket. Then Bucks kind of needed when he made that. Honestly, what did you think about West's return to the lineup?
I thought it was good. It's good to see West back, and you can immediately see him making a defensive impact, which was good. The offense is hit or miss, and that's just the thing you get with Wes Matthews. But he did hit a nice shot, like you mentioned, when the Bucks really needed it, and I don't know. It's just good to see him back. He's just another option. We talked on our last episode about how, we noticed that Jae Crowder hadn't been playing a lot in the second halves of games, and it's like that's not necessarily the Bucks not having faith in him. It's that there's just a lot of options that the Bucks can go to, and as long as everyone's well aware of what their roles can be, and like that, some nights they're not going to play because some nights they're not going to be the option because there's so many. This team is going to go places, and Wes Matthews is just another cog in that machine because he is another option. Like, just it's crazy to think about how last year, Ty, we were like Wes Matthews was a key rotational piece.
He started. He was a starter in the playoffs.
And now we're talking about him, like, obviously he's a year older, and it's like as guys his age start to age, it's not just a 1-year thing; it starts to compound.
And he's dealt with injuries as well,
of course. But it's wild to think about that a guy who started for this team last season in the postseason is now the third option in the wing rotation.
Like from the bench, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's you say third option. It sounds like you're like just off of the bench alone. I mean, yeah. Let's real quick.
You could have Pat or Jay or Joe in that spot ahead of Wes.
Yeah, she could be the fourth option then, basically.
Yeah.
I think the depth is ridiculous. I do think Crowder is gaining ground. I think part of it too is like, Pat played well. Pat deserved a chance. Like, you're not just going to banish him from the rotation and give up on Pat Connaughton after what we've seen the last 2 seasons before this one. But I think it's right that Crowder got to play. I believe Crowder, maybe he actually didn't play more. He did close over Pat in this game. Let me look up who logged more minutes. It was close. Crowder was 24.5. Pat was 25.5. I do think, Bud said there's no minutes restriction on Crowder. I do think they're at least trying to be smart with him, right? And not overdo it as he, gets back into playing. He has not looked like a guy who's rusty at all, really, at any point. I don't think. Maybe like the first game. It just seems like such a I could gush about Jae Crowder all day. The rotation, real quick. We can't do the whole thing. Maybe that'll be a pod for like this coming week or something. Just like where are you at in terms of who needs to play? Because I was on Javon needs to play. He didn't have a great game, but he actually, 3 for 5 from deep. Well, it actually was a pretty good game for Javon. It was just quieter in the second half.
It was a good game for Javon. Revenge game.
It was a lot of revenge going on, mostly on the Bucks side, thankfully. But who do you think has to play, and will we just see bigger rotations than we're used to in some of these playoff games?
I think we will for sure, especially early in series. We've seen this in years past because, if you want to take the classic example of guys phasing out of the rotation, it's Bobby Portis in the Brooklyn series during the title year. And you see, like, Bobby's playing early in that series. He's not just out right away because you have to feel out the series, right? Like, it's at minimum 4 games against the same team. You have to see what your guys have got against these matchups, because everything's theoretical until you put it to the test. And the playoffs are the only time you can actually put it to the test. So you're going to see games 1, 2, 3, even depending on how the series goes. You're going to see 10, 11 man rotations.
I think 10. Especially, I don't think it'll be more than 10.
It might be with this team tie.
So let's put players, especially
to the
numbers.
Game one, I guarantee at least 10.
Ooh.
No matter the series.
I agree. So, like, if you think this sounds ridiculous, like, again, Drew, Giannis, Chris, Drew, Brooke, 4 obviously. Grayson, even if you think he won't play later,
he's going to be the starter.
He's going to start.
He's going to be the starter,
at least until something happens that makes him not the starter. I think it's the same as Wes. Crowder, Bobby, Pat, Javon, Ingles is 10, and then West is 11. I mean, we could see 11. TA is 12. Goran Dragic, Myers Leonard, who is on a rest of the season contract. The Bucks brought him back. They couldn't do another 10-day. Listen, man, it's expensive depth. Like Leonard and
credit the ownership.
They're going in, and I think Haslam, won't say Papa this time. Not technically in yet, but still a good sign that that's pending, and they're just spending. I mean, Dragic and Leonard don't really play right now. I mean, Dragic is hurt, wasn't on the injury report. Now he's back on it. Whatever, hasn't played. Leonard is there, just doesn't play. It's like they're break glass in case of emergency guys, and the Bucks are paying a lot of tax to keep both of them around on full contracts. It's commendable. We have not seen them be this aggressive in filling the roster at this point in the season without a game left before they bring in someone. So that's been cool to see.
R.I.P. to Jordan's run as Israeli correspondent for the Bucks this season.
Yeah. Who knows? There's always, Summer League is right around the corner somehow. But I think we will see 10 or 11 early. Again, pending health, of course. I think there might be games where we see 9 guys late in a playoff series. I would not be surprised.
I wouldn't be shocked.
And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I mean, the primaries are not going to lose their minutes. And maybe that just means there can't be too many guys who play. I don't think there's a world where Giannis is playing 30 minutes in a late game because, we just needed to get Pat Connaughton some minutes, right? It won't be like that. But I do think a lot of the reason, some of the reason is the minutes crunch, just you literally run out of minutes to give. A lot of the reason, though, teams don't go deeper is they just can't without losing by a lot. I think the Bucks' depth is real enough that they can go 8, 9, 10, let's just say 9 deep, and you're just playing good enough players that you're fine. You're not – I mean, I just went through the names. Even if you really are worried about Grayson, maybe he plays a lot less. You could still play 10 guys. And if Grayson doesn't play at all, and again, I think he will, but there's so much cover now. They're in such a good spot.
Yeah, they are. And it's each one of those 10 guys or 11 guys have proven at points during the season that they're worthy of playoff rotation minutes.
Yes.
And none of them have really shown this season that they're not.
Pat's probably the closest. Pat and Wes are probably the closest. I think they've had the worst seasons among those 11.
I think Pat's the closest.
Yeah.
Because
we know what Wes is.
Yes. We don't have that high of expectations of Wes compared to Pat.
Yes.
But we've seen Pat this season. And of course, my playback jinx clicks in. As Jordan mentioned, I put Pat Connaughton and Rice immediately gets a 4-point play the next possession.
Yep.
But just nice. Overall, it's been a downward trend.
Yeah.
For Pat Connaughton this season, and it's just been the reason we have faith in him as a playoff rotation piece is just his history as a member of the Milwaukee Bucks. But I think the closest is Pat this season or Wes. Yeah,
Wes just availability and rough start to the year. I think he's been better since.
But he came in and played good defense.
Yeah, I think it was good to see from him. You mentioned his age, another pretty serious injury. It's kept him out for a long time. was nice to see him come in and play well. I like the options.
Flip-flopping between a calf and a hamstring.
Yeah. Oh, apparently, did you see they said the hamstring thing was a typo?
How do you mistype that?
Listen, man. Don't shoot the messenger here. But yeah, I just think it's a good thing. And Crowder, I think, has probably gained the Javon maybe, but I think Crowder has gained the most ground realistically. We kind of expected this to happen, but there were times where he didn't play as much. I think he's kind of winning Bud over pretty quickly here. I think it's going to be really hard to keep him out of being like the third wing, if you want to count, I guess, Chris and Giannis as the first two. I think that's where he's at right now. I mean, he's been so good.
He's been really good. I mean, it's hard to argue against anyone, which is why you're going to see this in playoff rotations. Like, it's just who's better in the moment.
And I think that's
because you have this many options.
And Crowder coming along the way he has, I think, will make it a little more likely Pat loses more minutes, because Crowder is basically playing like the better version of that. Pat's thing was like he's the every tool wing, right? Like Wes is the defensive specialist, Grayson is the shooter. Pat gives you both, and they like being able to go both ways. Crowder can give you both as well, and has just been better over the course of the season. Obviously, smaller sample, but hasn't really had this a downward moment, at least an extended one yet. So it's good to have both. I think there's certainly room for both, but I do think you could see Grayson being the shooting specialist, West being the defensive specialist, one of many on this Bucks team. Javon is the backup guard, Ingles is the backup playmaker, and then Pat may end up in no man's land. I don't know. It's going to depend. It's really, I think it will, as you said it well. It's going to be a series by series, matchup by matchup thing, and Bud will certainly be able to get a few different guys to see if they can get the hot hand and then go with those players going forward.
Yeah, for sure. It's the playoffs cannot come fast enough, Ty. I'm ready. I'm locked in. We've gotten 2 games in a row that have had playoff intensity, right? Like going back to that Kings game, it was just that was an intense game.
I think you could say Warriors too. I mean, this whole trip. I mean, that one wasn't the result we would like to see, but the 3 intense games.
Yeah, 3 intense games. It's funny going against the West when it's like the West is a mess. The West is an absolute mess.
I have to check the standings every day to see what the new matchups would be and everything else. One more Crowder impact on the rotation. I think Bobby's going to be like a 20-minute or less guy in most games, pending weird lineup stuff now. I just think you watch Bobby Giannis was the, Brook off the floor, but we have size lineup. Crowder Giannis is like just demolition. Like it's so good.
Brook's not on the floor, but we'll still smash you.
Yeah, but we can also switch everything, and there's shooting everywhere, and there's playmaking everywhere, and those lineups are something. I think Bobby will have a role, but I do think it's like become more of a niche now of like, you're going to play a lot in these certain first and third quarters, go take a bunch of shots, get a bunch of rebounds. Don't know if we're going to see him as much in fourth quarters anymore. Love Bobby, huge Bobby fans. We'll see. Maybe there's a matchup where he just really flourishes. But I think we know the Bucks like to lean defense. What do you think about that and Bobby's role lately?
It's been a little hit or miss, but that's just what you're going to get with an offensive focused player like Bobby. Just like it's all gonna be dictated by how well he's shooting the ball. I mean, when he's making his shots, he's making a massive impact because it's like he takes the correct shots. He does things within the flow of the offense. He fills an obvious role on this team, and he's a bucket getter. But it's just like if he's not hot, it's not going to be a positive impact. If he is hot or he's at his normal, it's going to be a positive impact. It's all dependent. I kind of liken it to early tenure Pat Connaughton.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Juice. I was really thinking OJ Mayo was going to. I don't know why. My eyes lit up. I was like, is this an Uncle Juice?
Bring him back. Bring him back. Who needs
full.
Goran Dragic? Let's get OJ Mayo back wherever he is. I think he's playing in Taiwan.
Maybe OJ would be ready to play earlier. Hopefully Dragic is not. He looked okay. I don't know what's going on with his knee, but we know how the Bucks are with their caution, which is good.
Yes, they're very cautious when it comes to injuries, and they're very good at treating injuries.
Yes, 100%. And I don't want to be a Bobby basher. There are a lot of Bobby bashers out there. Just strictly saying, not even. There's a lot worse. I think there's still a role for him. I think he's still a very, very helpful, productive member of the team. I just think that they're going to go defense more late in games, and I totally agree with that call. Okay, anything else? I know it's going to be a micro pod. We're at 35 minutes. I just keep lobbing stuff at you, but so excited to talk Bucks basketball with you, Rohan. Oh, it's been such a fun 2 days.
Here's a fun setup of the West, by the way.
Oh, boy.
The difference in games as we're recording this between number 5 and number 12 is the same gap that the Bucks have over the second best record in the league.
Is that 3 games now?
It's 3 games.
Also, 3-game cushion on Boston. That head-to-head matchup, Bucks could get tiebreaker and add a game to that. Such a big. I mean, we're not all the way there, but we're kind of getting to like you beat Boston and Philly, and you're probably the 1 seed. We're getting pretty close to that at this point in the season, and they can do it without.
Hi, there's only 13 games left.
Yeah, so I mean that puts you at minimum. Boston would have to 5 games up on the Bucks then, I think, with the tiebreaker if Milwaukee wins that. And again, every Boston loss adds more. The Bucks actually, we didn't mention, first to 50 wins, first to clinch a playoff spot.
They clinched the playoff spot. Yeah, first to 50 wins. It's crazy that we were talking a little bit before we started recording. Like, they get to 60.
Yeah, you brought it up. I'll give you the credit if they do. It's so funny because I keep thinking like, it's lucky to go 1-2 on this trip. Win 60, they're not going to go 10-3. But then it's like, well, when Giannis plays, they win almost all the games. So maybe, why not?
Yes, but also like if they lock up the 1 seed, they're gonna be cautious.
They're not going to go full Denver, but they will be cautious. Yeah,
I think full Denver is just collapsing.
Yeah, I mean they've got this. Apparently, everyone I've seen talk about them is like, they pretty much have 1 locked up, so they're off. It's like, is that acceptable? Can you just? I feel like that's not really. If that is what's happening, I think that's almost worse than them just playing bad.
Ty, you don't understand, Ty. Jokic is now trying to not win MVP because he doesn't want the pressure.
I'm almost worried that's true. I don't think it is. He's played very well in at least 2 of those games, but offensively, to be clear. I don't know, man. In Boston, I don't know what pressure they're worried about. Marcus Smart, I think they're low-key turning against him, which is incredible cinema. I really hope that continues on.
It's good. It's good to see on a basketball court. I mean, Mark, I feel bad now because it's like we got that story in the offseason about Marcus Smart and Drew teaming up with Children's Hospital in Wisconsin.
Drew really respects him, which I just can't comprehend. But the off-court stuff probably plays into it.
Let's keep the slander on the court. I'll say that. Let's keep it about on the court.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is totally fine. He's a dirty player on the court. I'll say that.
Yeah, he body slams people. It's ridiculous. One quick fanfic I've been thinking about. I want to do one as well. This is what we do.
Okay, Michael Pena.
Call me Mikey P. The Heat finish 7th or 6th, and they beat Boston and Philly somehow, which is really, really, really unlikely. Not totally impossible. And then just like lose in 5 against the Bucks because they just don't have any spacing. That's my new favorite outcome for this playoffs. Just imagine. I mean,
they almost beat the Celtics last year.
And they beat the Sixers like 2 years ago?
Yeah.
So I feel like the Heat
3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I think 3 years ago. They're such a better team against anyone but Milwaukee. If they end up in that other bracket, I think it's obviously most likely.
What you're saying is they're better against worse teams?
They're better against teams who don't have Brook Lopez. That's for sure. I just think that'd be so funny. Like all this, I could just imagine the series would be played up with so much hype, and then the Bucks just take care of business because Jimmy doesn't shoot. He'll shoot like 2 threes a game in the playoffs. Bam doesn't shoot at all. Mitty is dangerous, but doesn't shoot threes at all. And then they just have all these random guys who aren't quite good enough. And gotta respect Bam's Mitty. I've always
you caught yourself. You caught yourself though.
But yeah, I think that would be just hilarious. It's not going to happen. That could end up beating one of those teams. But yeah, if Bucks hold one, the bracket's shaking out pretty nice. Make those two teams play each other if one of them gets to Miami, which, God, that would be so funny if Miami beats.
It'd be so funny. And you mentioned like the Bucks Heat would be all played up, and it would just end up like
it'd be
the
so
last time the Bucks played.
Yeah,
it's the same thing that happened the last time the Bucks played the Heat in the playoffs.
I mean, Kevin Love is the Trevor Ariza, I guess, and that actually might sound worse.
God, would they have Kevin Love defend Giannis?
They did to start the first game when they got him. I mean, they're down horrendous.
They're down bad.
Yeah. Caleb Martin is like, I saw a Heat person, he's been our second most consistent player. It's like, really?
You got Jimmy Butler and Bam.
I listen, man. I don't know. Heat people hate their season, but they are just one of those teams that I could totally see them giving either Boston or Philly a way harder matchup than they should.
More dangerous, though.
To the Bucks, I maintain that. I maintain that take.
That's fair.
Porzingis shooting 75% from three against the Bucks in 2 games is totally a thing that could happen.
It is a thing that could happen.
Okay, wrap the pod. We're 40 minutes now.
Last
I'm here for it. I'm totally here for it.
I mean, yeah, we're excited. We're gonna keep talking. Hopefully everyone is liking it. I'm sure they are. What were your thoughts on the Brooke Trey Lyles thing? Because I've only been talking about it.
We didn't talk about this. I just absolutely love the Bucks making it clear that you can't punk Giannis in any way, shape, or form. And I've always loved that. When Chris went after Blake Griffin in 2019, I loved it. Bobby has obviously done a little bit of this. Brooke, the ferocity with which Brooke went after Trey Lyles, there were 6 Kings in that pile, and none of them mattered. He moved the whole, like all of Europe, all of the Kings were pushed back into the scorer's table. And I maintain that if Brooke were not the gentleman and scholar that he is, Trey Lyles could have just been over. Number 41 could have just been done. And he just didn't want to do it because he's, again, Brooke Lopez, just, that's not him. But I just love the message of like, even if Giannis walked by you and the Kings act like it was the ultimate sacrilege, absolute losers. I mean, they're going to lose probably in the first round because they don't play defense. They don't shoot enough. But
it's difficult to make me hate the Kings because they've been the best story in the NBA this season. But just the way they've reacted to this is just it's just like massive loser mentality.
I also hated watching Sabonis in that game because it's that combination of like playing super physical, boxing out and defense, and then whining and flopping all the time as well. And it's like, pick a lane, dude. I hate players who do both. It's obviously he's much worse, but that's like
I'm sorry, are we talking about Devin Booker?
Well, Devin Booker doesn't have the physical part. That's the difference. Devin Booker isn't slamming guys. He's just taking his nice little jumpers and losing Pat Connaughton on the corner.
Did you see Monty Williams is complaining about Giannis taking more free throws than the entire Suns team? And I was like, what year is it? I was this is the same thing that's happened.
I called it in the first quarter. He was going to have to do that again. Sorry, your team never goes to the rim, Monty. What do you want them to call the fouls on?
I'm sorry, DeAndre Ayton's just pulling up for mid-range every time he touches the ball.
He looked like Bam Adebayo out there. But I thought the fight was, it was just like, it was great. I thought it was great. It was a great capper to that game. I think the toughness aspect that maybe in years past hasn't always been there is all the way there right now. And I kind of like, the Bucks are bullies, and I'm all for it. I mean,
this is their identity. This is what I talked about when they got Jae Crowder. Yeah. They get to lean more into their identity of just being a physical team that'll beat the crap out of you.
No one wants to play them. It must be horrible. So there was a possession where it might have been like Campaign gets around enough, Drew and Jae Crowder, and gets to the rim, and then Brooke Lopez is there. And it's like, this has to be the worst team to play offense against. Like, the defenders are everywhere. They're relentless. You're on the other end, and Giannis is barreling through you. They're not mean-spirited, but they're mean. Like, they're not taking anything from you. Like, they're not taking crap. Like, I love that. That is exactly the kind of team you want to root for. That is exactly the kind of team that wins a title 2 years after winning a title. I think they're set up in such a good position right now with instability and basically outside of Philly, and that's hilarious to say, there's instability in every other team you could call a contender. Nobody is in a stable position right now. Like, nobody is on a run. Nobody's feeling good again, except Philly, who's, like, again, the exception. They're playing quite well right now. Having this big game lead on the 1 seed, both in the East and overall, best player, I think the deepest team, the best defensive team. I mean, I'm so excited. As you said earlier in this pod, excuse me, I'm getting emotional. The playoffs, I can't wait. This is. I think I tweeted this during the game. They've learned from every series loss. I just feel like you can see it, and they're so well equipped for every single thing. Like, there is no team, no player, no scenario where you're like, oh, the Bucks don't have an answer. They always have an answer. It's ridiculous.
They just keep evolving.
Yeah.
It's like it's like Iron Man in the Marvel movies. It's like every time something happens, it keeps adding, keep improving based on past mistakes, and you're seeing that with this Bucks team. This is like what happens with continuity. This core has grown together, and we're now in year 3 of Drew Holiday being here, and it's like, yeah, that's a long time.
Year 5 of the Bud Giannis Chris Brook foursome.
The Breakfast Club, yeah.
Breakfast Club, exactly.
As I coined, by the way. That's my term.
Well, Brook wasn't there. Right? Maybe
Brook was not there, but
that's the triumvirate of Chris Giannis Bud is the Breakfast Club.
It was on Win and 6 before GSPN. I remember.
Baby. Ooh. But I couldn't agree more, though. It's the content. I mean, this is the event. I mean, obviously they made the big Bledsoe for Drew trade since then, but largely outside of that, and especially the last 2 years, they're not blowing it up. They're not desperate to take some swing. Like, they like their personnel. They keep adding to it. Guys keep developing further. I mean, we talked about in the last pod, there was like 4 guys you could put up for the most improved Buck over the course of the season. Like, that continuity and being additive instead of always thinking you need to swap out in this era of the NBA where, look at the Suns. I mean, they obviously weren't as good of a position, but they got desperate. They traded all the picks they had, and Mikal Bridges, who looks great, and Cam Johnson really gutted the core that went to the finals and then led the league in wins for Kevin Durant. And again, they got KD. I'm not saying that's a bad move, but the continuity the Bucks have had over the last 3 seasons, I do agree entirely. That is what puts you in a position to say, we've been through it all. We know what to do. We have the pieces. Like, we're just going to go win. And that's all they've been doing lately. I mean, what are they now? They're like 22-2 in their last 24 or something now, or something ridiculous.
Yep, something like that. They just keep winning. Just keep winning, Ty. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap this episode up. Say thank you for listening to this episode of the Gyro Step here on GSPN and Blue Wire Podcast. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening to this podcast platform of choice, or you're watching it on YouTube. Check out gspn.info for all of our links for all of our podcasts here on GSPN, as well as our Substack, playback, Discord, merch, whatever you need. It's all at gspn.info. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice. 5 stars, pod random, and we will talk to you next time.